What is up, YouTube? Johnny B here again today, and we're going to be bringing you a video on a WRX. I know you guys see a lot of FRS content here, but we're going to be working on a WRX. This is going to be for a customer. He has a very nice carbon hood, as you guys can see here, but the issue is that he wants to go ahead and install some AeroCatch latches. So we have them here. Got them on Prime, on Amazon Prime. So if you guys want a link to those, there should be a link down below. If you guys are interested in getting some AeroCatch hood latches of your own. It's always something that you want to do when you have a carbon fiber hood. I have it done on my car, and I deleted, the stock hood latch, mainly because the stock hood latch that comes in these is most likely easily breakable. So one of the things that you want to make sure is that it is latched down properly and the hood's not going to fly up, it's not going to damage your windshield, not going to damage your fenders or anything else. So you want to make sure that it's on there nice and tight, and it's just a nice aesthetically pleasing mod to do as well, because not only is it functional, it actually looks really good, and it makes opening my hood a whole lot easier because I don't have to worry about going inside and pulling the hood latch, getting it to pop up, and then lifting up the hood. I could just go straight up to my hood, pull the hood latch, and just pop the hood right up. So you guys may be wondering, but if we do that, Johnny, isn't it gonna be easy for anybody else to open our hood? Yes and no. So the AeroCatch latches have a little shiny part right there, and that is a keyhole. So you can actually lock them and unlock them depending on how you want them to open or when you want them to open or whatnot. So let's go ahead and install the hood latches and install the hood back on the car. The AeroCatch hood latches, they come with this little bottom piece here. They even have like a little aerocatch.com. So come in two pieces. This piece is obviously going to go over the top, and then this is going to grab it from underneath, just to make sure it clamps on nice and strong. Let me show you guys what the WRX looks like. It's got a front mount intercooler, Kaale intake, an aftermarket J pipe, and nice exhaust. I believe the turbo stock. It's just funny to see how the engine looks so similar to my FRS engine, apart from having a different intake, apart from having the turbo down there. Obviously my car wouldn't have a turbo if it was stock. They have like this little oil cooler that comes from factory, and they have a lot of room back here, because that's typically where your intercooler would go. But since he has the front mount, is it over here? Also has a little white body kit with some Cosmos Racing wheels. So it's a nice looking car. Got a carbon fiber STI wing with the parent little inserts, and overall it sounds pretty nice. So I'm excited to get this hood done so we can go ahead and install those latches and have it on the car. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is put the hood back on, and then we're going to figure out where we need to drill, where we're going to make the holes in the hood. Obviously we're going to put the studs for the AeroCatch somewhere on the core support in this area. I see that there is matching holes right here, so if we don't want to drill new holes, we could always use existing holes, and hopefully both of those holes line up with a nice part on the hood where we're not going to be affecting one of the body lines, because obviously we don't want to cut right around the body line because the AeroCatch will not sit nice and flat. So we have a couple options. We have right here, and kind of like in this area. I believe if we put it here, this area is a bit curved, so it might not sit flush. So we just gotta figure out where we're gonna mount them first. I already talked with the owner. He gave me those two ideas. He showed me some pictures of other people having them there. So it should work. Let's go ahead and throw the hood back on. So I got the hood back on, bolted it back on, and I was able to line it all up. It was a little bit misaligned. Got it all to line up perfectly good. You can see here it doesn't even have a latch to latch it on, so that's not good. I wonder what happened there. And then at the same time I saw that these hit the fender there at one point, and the windshield looks fairly new, like someone just put on some brand new rubber on the edging and didn't even do a good job over there. So I also saw a bit of cracks on the hood on both sides. So if I had to guess, the hood latch broke. Lifted up, dented both fenders. See there? Paint even chipped off on both sides. The hood came back, smacked the windshield, gave it some cracks on the little hood vent, and possibly damaged the windshield, needing a new windshield. So that's why we are installing AeroCatch hood vents. And now you know why we need to install them on carbon fiber pieces, so the latch may fail, I guess. Or you might just not have latched it properly. Anyways, I already started trying to figure out where to put the studs. So there's one right there, and there's one right there. Measured it all out. I got them to line up with this intersection here. Don't know exactly where they're landing, so I need to figure that out to drill the hole. But it looks like we're going to be installing AeroCatch somewhere in this area. Typically I like to use the existing holes, and we had various existing holes. One there, one there, one there, one there. But none of those were lining up with good areas. They were all lining up in areas where there's like this really big mass, and like this hood is kind of heavy for being a carbon fiber hood. There's like a bunch of stuff in this area, so we can't really put the AeroCatch there because we're going to be cutting through a lot of stuff. So I found that this part right here is the part that is the thinnest, but it's also a very strong thick part. It's just there's not a big opening that we have to chop off, so we're going to be lining it up somewhere around this area that should be strong enough to hold, and we won't be leaving massive holes in the hood. So I did unfortunately have to make some new holes. As you can see there, that one kind of got the sticker too, but not much we can do about that. The goal is to put these on and have this hood not pop up again. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some sort of marker to the tips of these so I can see where they are landing. So what I'm gonna do is I have a Sharpie. I have a Sharpie around here. I'm gonna mark the tips, and hopefully the Sharpie pinpoints where marks are, so I can drill a hole straight through, and then I can start placing the AeroCatch hood latches. If you guys are wondering, there is the mark. The Sharpie didn't actually work. This was a previous mark. This is the new mark right there. You can see the same thing over here. Obviously this is fiberglass, so it's gonna get marked anytime a piece of metal like that is rubbing up against it. And now we can go ahead and drill holes, line everything up, and then cut whatever we need to cut to be able to get access to bolting the back side of the AeroCatch. So this is where it gets kind of sketchy, because we have to cut and drill through a perfectly good carbon fiber hood. So let's get to it. First, I'm gonna start off with a smaller drill bit. Don't want to go too crazy. And let's see if I can capture this. Make sure everything's going good. Okay, let's go ahead and go through it. Oh, there it goes. And there is the hole. Seems to be in a pretty good spot because we're not too close to the body line. You can see the body line right there. How it kind of grabs that black line right there. So we're a good distance from the body line. You never want to be too close to the body lines when putting the AeroCatch, because it's going to be centered. Here is the center area. So if you look here, what we're going to be lining up to is this. So you have this extra space that you want to line up with the body line. You don't want it to be overlapping it, because then you're going to have a weird gap right there. So first step done, figuring out where we're going to mount those and drilling the hole. And now is where the magic happens, because we need to put these on there, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. So now let's go ahead and make that hole a bit bigger. This will let me make sure that everything's lining up, and then as well as kind of centering up everything. If the holes are not perfectly perpendicular to each other, or they're not perfectly symmetrical, better said, you have room to play with, because we still got to do a much larger hole in the carbon fiber to actually fit the bottom section of the AeroCatch. So don't fear if they're not perfectly symmetrical. We're going to be able to mess with that. We're going to be able to measure the AeroCatch when it's on there, just to make sure that everything lines up perfectly and it looks good, and you don't have two AeroCatch hood latches that are not in the correct spot. So let's go ahead and start making sure this all lines up. Now that we got it cleaned off a little bit, I just use a little bit of air to blow it off. We're gonna put the hood down, and look at that, what's right there? The stud for the AeroCatch is there, and the stud for the AeroCatch is over here. So looks like we're lining it up pretty good now, and the hood is almost to its closing point. Looks like the studs might need to go a little bit down lower because they're not really supposed to be visible, but just for measuring purposes, this is perfectly fine. We can adjust it later on once we are on the final steps of making sure that the hood is closing properly. So now let's move on to the next step. So now the next step that I like to do is I like to place them on top of the hood. Obviously they would slide off, so you could either use some tape and like roll it over on its side, so that way it's kind of like a double-sided tape, or you can get actual double-sided tape like I did here. You see a little foam piece under there, and it like holds it in place. Then from here I can go ahead and decipher, you know, what's the best way to position it. I also measure to make sure that they're both symmetrical, and so far so good. This side kind of like trips you out because of the way that it's going with the weave. And then over here, since it's going against the weave, the body line, you can see it a little bit more clearly. But I went ahead and measured from this section to the hood, and from this bolt hole to the hood where it strains out, and they are exactly the same on both sides. So that's good. So from here, the next step is to mark it. So since it's not moving, I'm gonna get a Sharpie and kind of go around the bottom area, because that's what we need to cut out. So we don't need to cut out too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and Sharpie both of these, take them off, go ahead and cut through, and then we should be able to get closer to finalizing the installation of the AeroCatch hood latches. So I already went ahead and marked it, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off, and you can see the marks right there of what we need to cut. There's the double-sided tape piece that I put on there. So same thing with this other side. Just pull it off. The marks are there, and that's what we need to cut. So you may be wondering, what are you going to cut this with, Johnny? Well, a lot of people use, I think, like a rotary tool to cut this, which is a good option. I have always liked using this little vibration tool. I think it's like an oscillating vibrating tool. So when I when I give it power, what it does is it vibrates, and you can literally hold it with your hand and it won't cut you, but it will cut whatever you are working with. So you can be really precise. It doesn't create heat, so it's not gonna fade the carbon or anything like that. And I can be really precise with this little edge right here whenever I need to go around its spot like that. So next step, let's go ahead and cut those out. Make sure that the AeroCatch fits in the holes that we cut, not keep making them bigger slowly. You don't want to cut too much, because then it'll be visible and you just messed up your hood. So let's go ahead and cut these out. So the first thing that I do is I just go ahead and cut out the straight lines. Very simple, because this thing is really straight. And then from here is where it gets a little bit more tricky, because I need to make those round edges. I just kind of traced around it. Didn't go all the way through in some sections, so I just got to keep passing over it until I go straight through, but I'm doing it very carefully, very precisely, because most people would probably tape up everything just to protect the rest of the hood if anything were to happen, that they slide off. But with this thing, I can be really precise and very careful. So there's that. Obviously it looks like I did skip over here, but onto the inside, which is how I have it set up, to where if it does decide to skip, it goes towards the area that isn't going to get damaged. So it's kind of like the same principle of cutting away from yourself to make sure you don't cut yourself. So let's finish cutting this out. Now we did get completely through. You can see there it's a bit loose. Might be some sections here where it's not 100%. To the other side, do the same thing. And also on the underneath of it, underneath the hood, we also need to do the same cut, or just cut through, because this is just me cutting the top layer. So let's pop that out so you can see how it looks under there. So let's go ahead and take this off. I'm gonna be, oh, what? It came off actually pretty easy. I don't want it to fall in. There we go. Looks like it was already all the way cut through. There's just some areas where there is some glue that was still holding it in place. But now you can see what I mean by still some more stuff that we need to cut underneath. Luckily, it's gonna be only like this little section that needs to be cut, and nothing too crazy. So let's go ahead and continue. So after that, I went ahead and cut around, making sure that I had enough space to place the bracket that goes right underneath it. And in that bracket, all I do is I put the nuts that go to them, so they're like locking nuts. And after that, all you really have to do is bolt it down. So with those locking nuts and that bracket through the back, you just go ahead and bolt these all down, and that's how they look installed. One of the things that you have to really mess around with is the mechanism. So if you see there, I went ahead and modified the bracket a little bit. I had to drill it out so where the opening is a little bit bigger, because since these are coming at an angle, they needed to be able to not hit. So if I go ahead and raise the hood, it'll be perfectly fine without hitting. So you see it just comes down, and then when you go to close it, you want it to be at the highest point of that hole, so that way the hood is not moving up and down. And there it is. It is now locked, it's not moving. And same thing with the other side. You can even kind of hear it touching right here a little bit, so it's working out perfectly. And one more thing is they come with like a rubber. So all you have to do is put the rubber in here, and depending on how big the opening is over here and how you left, how long you left the screw here, you're gonna have to either chop it or leave it. Luckily in this case, I didn't have to modify it at all. It just sits in there, and the hood sits in there nice and snug. Just give you a little look at what it looks like. It's looking very nice. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and clean this up, and then should be ready for pickup for the customer. Now his hood won't open up ever again, because those are very reliable, very strong. I've never had any issues with them, even at higher speeds. So, and they look good.